Take it
So
away.
Can we record? Can we record?
Mary, okay if we record?
Sure.
Okay, let me quickly introduce Mary so she has her full time. Mary is an award-winning journalist, an opinion writer, and editor, inspiring excellence and change in the media for more than 20 years, and is the current editor of Connection Newspapers, which includes the Potomac Almanac. She's the winner of multiple awards in editorial writing and public service. She sits on many boards, including Maryland. Oh no, it's Fairfax Falls Church Partnership to Prevent Homelessness, Boys and Girls Club of the Greater Washington Fairfax region, and also on the board of Media and Democracy Institute. And I'm sure she could talk to us many days on many of these topics, but I'll let you have it, Mary.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. Let me ask if there are any journalists in the group. Any journalists listening? Okay. I'm just of interest where we are. One of the first requests when I got the email asking me to do this was to talk about the history of the Potomac Almanac. Has everyone here seen it? Are you've seen the Potomac Almanac? Great.
Mary, I'm not a journalist, but I'm a follower of you on Twitter.
Okay. That's a mixed bag, Twitter in general, including following me, but
Oh, you're good.
and what is your Twitter?
I think you follow me. I'm on the Potomac River Explorer.
Ah, excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I know
Absolutely.
you're interested in the Potomac, so
The Potomac River is one of my passions.
yeah.
And to talk a little bit about the history of the paper, the Potomac Almanac was started in 1959, basically at the dining room table of two families. And they're interesting families. It was founded by two women, Margot McConaughey and Polly Adams at the time. They early editions, and I'm sorry I don't have one here to show, but they had a lot of character. They were hand illustrated. Some of them were done were Xeroxed and stapled at the table and passed out. They were very, every single thing in the community was documented because the community was so much smaller. God help you if you drove out in your pajamas to deliver your kid to school and your car broke down, because for sure somebody at the Almanac would have reported about it at the time. Ellie Kane and Bruce Adams were the children of those two people and those longtime community activists. Margot McConaughey's husband, Mike McConaughey, actually founded Potomac. Ellie Kane said of her father, he was in real estate. He understood that Potomac would grow and be a great place for real estate. And he started driving around and finally found a farm he wanted to move to. Margot said, "Are you out of your mind?" But within a year, they were adding on to the house. And the house that they moved into in Potomac on Piney Meeting House Road to start with was two different wings of a log cabin, essentially. Meanwhile, Polly Adams and her husband Tinsley Adams and their three children, Bruce, Reagan, and McGill, lived for a while in the gatehouse of the Marwood estate. And anybody who's driven out River Road to go kayaking or other things has seen that gatehouse. They ended up building a house also on Piney Meeting House Road. And then one of the characteristics of the early paper, and we're still talking in the 60s here, was that on the masthead was the motto, our policy to resist progress in Potomac. And some people will tell you that that is the guiding force and the guiding mission now as well, although that is not entirely true. The other thing that the Almanac did for many years is Pat Donovan wrote a story, an introduction to every family that moved to Potomac, including my family that moved in 1966. It was a true piece of the community. It was started to be a true piece of the community, and it actually was, in some ways, what many community newspapers do. It defines a sense of community. I also have 7 papers in Virginia. Used to be 15, but we've done a little consolidating in the current economic environment. And these are the papers actually create that sense, especially I find in the Virginia suburbs. It's very easy, to say, and look, if the Washington Post writes about Fairfax County, they write about Fairfax County. They don't write about the individual towns. Where we have a paper in Great Falls, we have a paper in McLean, we have a paper in Reston. And those are the places where it's really our responsibility to help maintain a sense of place for people. That it's where they live. The role of the community paper, I think, is so big. It's because it's so small that you have to cover from the PTA, and God knows that's a fraught process at the moment, but you have to cover from the PTA and the very micro level to also explaining and continuing to explain week by week why the community has the character it has, how, where are you in the world? Potomac and Great Falls, and you'll excuse me for a second. Potomac and Great Falls, for instance, on either side of the Potomac River from each other, were both zoned the way they are to protect the quality of the water in the Potomac River. The intake there's an intake at Swains Lock and an intake slightly above that at Riley's Lock on the Virginia side that provides the drinking water for the entire region. And so the reason that you have low density development in those two communities along that area is to protect the water, to maintain, forested edges of things. And it's just important to remember that, and also to continue to remind elected officials of that, and planning boards and zoning officials, that there's a reason these communities are the way they are. And it isn't just because people don't want more development. It's that way for a reason. And that's true in our other communities where it's the mission sometimes is different. So we can have, but it means that we don't have to be objective. And in Potomac or Great Falls, if someone's talking about developing a big swath of land in an area that doesn't match the protections that are required there, that it's okay for us to present the reasons that shouldn't occur. And one of the things that the Potomac Almanac did was be involved in the last master plan. And the master plan, everybody's eyes can glaze over when you talk about such things. But in fact, every development and every piece of property that might be developed next to you and next to where you live is guided by what the master plan says, and not just by the specifics for each community, for each piece of property, but by the guiding principles for, in Montgomery County, there's a philosophy called wedges and corridors. And there's, and that says that the Potomac area and the Up County area is a green wedge. It's there as an environmental protection. And that's one of the reasons that you have a 2-lane road policy in Potomac also. the ways that these papers, there's a routine to it that helps you define community, as you go through the year. In the summertime, we do a newcomers issue, and the newcomers issue is time when we talk to old timers, so that we can give a sense for people what the community is about, why people live there, what people love about it, the best place to see the sunset, everybody's favorite places. We cover elections on a local level in a way that most places don't. The school board issues now are as fraught as the PTA, and Montgomery County in particular has a very complicated school board system in terms of who you vote for, and it's different than intuition would tell you. Are people familiar with how the school board is set up in Montgomery County? There's districts, and they're rotating, so you don't turn over the whole thing at once, like you do in county council. There are districts, but you vote for all the districts. So the Potomac and Bethesda are in District 1. So, well, I guess I'll have to check because everything is going to be different again for this coming up election. So you vote for all the school board members, even though they might be in a district that's not yours. This again is not fascinating stuff, but it's the kind of thing that the local paper, and in Bethesda, you all have the Bethesda beat for Bethesda magazine. People follow that. That's really an exceptional source. Their funding is not coming from advertising, and they're doing a very good job of providing daily coverage. And if you're interested in what's happening in your community in Bethesda and Montgomery County right now, you need to follow the Bethesda beat, because they will tell you every day what important things are happening, which your weekly newspaper will not tell you every day. We have not evolved to being a daily online, although that may be the future. Linda asked about PTA issues, and it's an interesting topic. There's nothing more explosive in community coverage, and would only be covered by a community paper, than redoing the boundaries for schools. If you can say you're about to redo boundaries for schools, it sends shivers through parents who have young children, who will tell you they moved to a particular area to go to a particular school. It's very complicated. People care about their schools in a way that they don't care about much else. And Montgomery County schools were not open in person for an entire school year. It was a very complicated issue, and that the divisions about masking and vaccines and have trickled into schools in a way that has been pretty divisive and pretty powerful. And you'll excuse me again, but there's evidence that there's political donations going from both sides into the school board races that are further driving the kinds of divisions that flow from that, including banning certain books. And the parents the parents right now in Fairfax County in particular, who are being very active, are the parents who want to send kids to school without masks, which is the rule of the land now there, that they can. The parents make the decision about whether their kids wear masks in school or not. And they're also the people who are most interested in restricting particular kinds of material in the school libraries, the kinds of topics that are talked about, the critical race theory questions. that are very divisive and very important to cover in a community newspaper. We are not covering that a lot in the Potomac Almanac right now, and that's a resource question, where we're doing more basic things in Potomac. But it's a complicated issue right now. Coming up, and I hope that you all will pay attention, that we've had redistricting, you know, every 10 years, according to the Constitution, after the census, they redraw all of the districts. So not only are the districts redrawn, both for our congressmen, Congress people, excuse me, and county council and the school board, but the county council is adding force. Anyway, they're going to go up to 7 districts and 4 at large. And so everything is going to, all of the boundaries are going to change. Your county council member, and I haven't looked at it for North Bethesda to tell you for sure which district you'll be in right now, but you need to pay attention. We all need to pay attention to who we are going to be represented by in the future. It's already been settled, and your local, I will say as a local journalist, that the local representatives are more important to you than your national representatives. Definitely. And sometimes it's hard in our coverage area where we have members, most of the members of Congress live in our coverage area, not just our members, but all the members. You know, when you have the people who are running the country, you have a little bit of trouble getting them to focus on that kind of readership, to focus on the local. But the local matters, and there are people right now focusing on the local that are trying to change things in a way that you may or may not agree with. So it's time to pay attention. My congressman, I believe, is changing from the district that Jamie Raskin represents to the district that David Trone represents. Just, you know, it's just a shift of a line, but a whole bunch of Potomac is going to shift from one district to the other. And it's a consequence of gerrymandering, I'm afraid to say, that Maryland has some of those districts that you see where you've got two long snakes next to each other, where really, if you were going to talk about communities of interest, you would keep, you know, it wouldn't be long and narrow like that Montgomery County might be represented by 1 or 2 people, but that then the outer areas would be represented by somebody else. And that's how it used to be. But that's been changed. And Maryland is an example where the Democrats are guilty of drawing those lines, and Virginia is an example of where the Republicans have been guilty of drawing those lines. It's a bipartisan vice, and it's been an issue. It will be an issue. You'll be represented by different people, but so one of the things, and it's one of the things that I hope to move forward with. Last year we had almost every seat in Fairfax County in Virginia open. And so the focus on elections was very big. This year, the filing deadline has been pushed back. It was February 22nd, and now it's March 22nd. But once the filing deadline passes, we'll have to develop a strategy of how we're going to cover things for the primary, which will be in June, and then for the final election in a way that is more interesting than what I just talked about. I guess I would be interested in hearing what would make you pay attention to local races. What would, can you tell me a little bit about what you would want to hear, might make you click on the paper or open the paper if you ran into it at the library and read about the elections? Nope.
Yeah. This is Dan Moore. my interest is environmental,
Mhm.
and that spans the distance between making sure that we are using renewable energy, making sure we are continuing to do something with our trash rather than just put it in a landfill, and those kinds of things. That's my primary interest.
And so I encourage you to read closely as you get material about the different candidates, especially for county executive and county council. We got this, we passed a term limits law, which has meant that we've lost a lot of institutional knowledge, historical knowledge about why, as I was explaining earlier, about wedges and corridors and why things are green and what, you know, what matters. And so there, it's quite possible if we had that the county executive candidates, some of them are going to be very pro-business. And you can be pro-business and pro-environment, definitely, but that is not necessarily the case here. And so if you know, the loss of historic understanding of the underpinnings of the environment in Montgomery County is one of the things that's happened as the term limits kick in and we have a lot of change on county council. And, you know, most change is good. You know, whatever it is, most change is good, but I think there are a lot of issues out there.
So
Go ahead.
Mary, my concern has to do with, again, the environment, but the broader scale. And I'll tell you my experience. I lived in this county for the last 35, 36, 7 years. And has to do with the Potomac master plan, because I was opposed to it when Connie Morella was representing our area. And we fought with this not opening the Potomac master plan, that some of the developers wanted to broaden the river road into 4-lane highway. They were also for the Point of Rocks, another bridge on the, you know, between the Maryland and Virginia. So we fought to, you know, I was elected on the North Potomac Citizens Association. And I think I'm still worried about those kind of issues as the politics changes on the Virginia side, particularly, is to push for that, the second bridge on the Point of Rocks, you know.
So you support the second bridge?
I'm sorry?
You support a bridge, a new bridge?
No, I don't support at all.
No, you don't. Okay, I misunderstood.
I'm totally against it. And that's what we fought for several.
Yeah.
And some of the developers, I'm sorry, the developers in Montgomery County, and I can name one of the congressmen then, I had a meeting with him and he said, I don't care, you can sue me or sue the county. Has to do with this Potomac master plan. It's about 10 years back. They wanted to open it so more growth can occur into the county, which I'm totally opposed with. The county is beautiful. We want to keep the environment as it is. And so I think my broader issue has to do with the growth in the Montgomery County. As I've seen for the last 30 years, tremendous growth. I can give you a lot of examples of the roads where there was nothing, and now it has grown like crazy. So I think we need to stop the growth in order to maintain the environment that we have in the county.
Well, I think that the hanging on to the Potomac Master Plan and the things that it spells out is pretty important. And there is a new, and now I'm having trouble. I'm losing my nouns, but there's a new. I think maybe it's called Thrive 2050. There's a new guiding overall plan that is not a particular master plan and actually would make it quite a bit easier for that kind of continued growth. But it does not, I don't think it doesn't mention water quality at all, this new plan. And it's still being developed. So it's again, if individuals pay attention to these things and talk to your county council members, and remember, you're represented by a majority of county council, right? You have your individual district and then 4 at-large members. So if you talk to your district member and 4 at-large members about what matters to you, it actually makes a difference. But this stuff is on the table right now.
Mary, is that second bridge up around White Cherry, is that still being discussed? Is that in the proposal?
On the Virginia side, they continue to talk about a
Yeah.
second crossing, like it would solve something, which I think we pretty much know it won't. But and so on the Virginia side of the world, they still talk about it like it's a something that's obvious and has to happen. I don't think that there's really a way for it to happen, having, covered, sentence by sentence, everything about it when it was really on the table. The kinds of right of way that they would have to take, the number of houses that they would have to, is really prohibitive. But as you have turnover, both in Virginia and Montgomery County, you have people say, well, gee, why not? It would, help the blah, blah, blah. And you go through the whole process again, and it's tiring. But it does require some vigilance, I would say. And Virginia's opposed to the bridge at Point of Rocks, which is something Frederick County would probably be okay with, a bridge at Point of Rocks, but Virginia doesn't want it because that's their, connects to their rural historic area. If you do it south of Point of Rocks, you come across the agricultural reserve, which is, a incredible accomplishment for Montgomery County, that we have this agricultural area in the north part, and hanging on to that is not a simple process. So
you think White's Ferry will be reopening anytime soon?
it's really very sad to see the lack of progress there. Right now, there was I think that the surrounding community was hoping that the town of Leesburg would do a eminent domain and take the property on that side to allow for the landing. But the property owner on the Virginia side, where the ferry lands, it basically has made it impossible. And all he wants is money. It's not like he's refusing to sell it. He says he'll sell it, but for X amount of money. And the people who would do the buying say it's not reasonable, or else
you wanted to charge for each car that comes over the bridge or the ferry too, right?
That's another, yes, one or the other. And so somebody's got to give somewhere. I used to go back and forth across the ferry there too. I have my daughter used to ride out in Hillsborough. So sometimes we would go across there, and I certainly miss the ferry, but I know that there are people who used to commute every day and they really miss the ferry. But no, I have no prospects for a quick turnaround on that. And I say it's sad. Their county put out Montgomery. I think it was a joint report between Leesburg and Montgomery County about how to make it work. And it's fascinating. It's got a lot of history in it, but it says we don't know. the issues are complicated. I'm going to take my 1 minute that's left to say local journalism is in peril. Local newspapers are in peril. Our revenue plunged at the beginning of the pandemic, and we were already on the edge. I have whittled and whittled and whittled, and I am working, and Linda, I apologize for not getting back to you 32 times, but I work 12 hours on Sunday, 12 hours on Monday, 14 hours on Tuesday. You know, my deadlines are huge because I'm covering for not hiring people in positions. I've moved from having staff writers to having freelancers, and freelancers are wonderful things. You know, they're experienced and they cover, and you have more of them and they can be more places, but boy, it's a lot of work. Recruiting them is a lot of work, guiding them is a lot of work, and I mean, the pay for them is very low. You know, it basically keeps it from costing them money to write stories, but we're lucky to have a wonderful group of people to do that. But if revenue doesn't turn around and we don't develop another system, I think it's going to be very difficult to keep a lot of independent newspapers open. We have a GoFundMe going. I'm not going to ask you guys for money. I think you apparently need to give more money to Rotary. And if you're interested in the Ukraine, I encourage you to give money to Doctors Without Borders. Their New York Times has a little piece up about they have the neonatal ward, the critical babies down in a bomb shelter in a hospital, and you can see the pictures of these tiny one of my grandchildren was preemie, these tiny babies wrapped up, and they're wrapped up, you know, and things dripping into them, but like on a bench. The human suffering that's about to develop because of this is huge. So read a little about the background, but if you want to give money to help Ukraine, that's one place to do it where you know it will go to good things. I appreciate you having me, and I can hang on and answer any questions that people have.
Mary, what a wonderful talk. Thank you so much for coming, and we hope your papers survive, because that journalism and bringing information to the people is so very important. So thank you so much for sharing today. And I want to
thanks for having me.
Yes, ma'am. I want to echo the giving to Doctors Without Borders. I think that's great. I did see that footage. It was heartbreaking. So
yeah.
Rotarians, we have an opportunity to go out there and hopefully make a difference in our communities and in the world. I'm going to officially end the meeting, but of course we can stay on and ask questions. But I just want to say, thanks for your time today, and we will see you in person next week.
Thanks. Mary, I have a question. How big is the full-time staff now?
I would have to count, but I can count like this. At one time we had hundreds of employees, and that probably wasn't sustainable at the time. But now it's under 20 full-time people, but I have a little more than 20 writers. And they're with the right nurturing and meeting, they are, I mean, most of them are experienced journalists who are now, retired or otherwise available, who are most interested in keeping things going and continuing and being involved in their communities, so that they have different, and I've managed to recruit people with many different interests. So we have, I have a woman in Mount Vernon whose stories appear in Potomac sometimes, who is fascinated by the Potomac River and the environment. I have, a writer, writers who focus on different things. So it's hanging together, but it's perilous.
Mary, two quick questions. Thank you. That was very interesting. Joe DiPietro here. Where can we find your paper in Potomac, number one? And number two, could you talk a little bit about Thrive? Just so I'd like to find out more about it. It kind of concerns me.
It should concern you. Thrive should concern you. The paper is definitely at the Potomac Library. You can subscribe and get a PDF emailed to you when it's published. It's and you can see that at PotomacAlmanac.com or ConnectionNewspapers.com. And we email out, tens of thousands of PDFs, but there's a good supply at the Potomac Library and the Potomac Community Center. And I don't know, maybe at Davis Library. I'm not sure if we've started going back in there now that they're open.
Mary, it was available in 7-Eleven stores actually, a number of years back when I looked at it. It's like you can get a free copy at 7-Eleven stores, Potomac Almanac.
Well, we aren't in 7-Eleven stores right now for a variety of logistical reasons. So
Okay.
community on both sides of the river, we still mail into homes. We're hand delivered into River Falls, and on the Virginia side, we're mailed into Great Falls and Fairfax Station and hand delivered in Reston and Herndon. And so we still have quite a few papers out there, but probably we have more digital readers than paper readers at this point. Although I'm a fan of the paper, obviously, the physical paper, obviously. And on Thrive, I think that I can't really address it. I could talk for 5 hours about Thrive with a little bit of preparation. So I recommend that you go and read the document that's there. There are various organizations commenting on it, but I think it's pretty clear that a lot of people lobbying for in the interest of growth have had their hands on this document. And so it requires reading and giving feedback. And I believe there's still time to give feedback, but I would have to look up the dates but it is an overall guiding document that is not benign.
How would you look it up online?
Hmm?
How would you look it up online?
Just type in to Google
Okay.
Montgomery County, Maryland, space Thrive 2050, and that should call it up for you.
Thank you.
So, Mary, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Thank you for sharing with us. Wow, what a great resource you are and everything. I would love to keep you going here, but I know your time is limited. Let me just ask you a couple of things. I gave testimony one time on an environmental issue. As you can see, that's a common interest that we have here. This regarding trees. We need to grow more trees, obviously, for many reasons. We're getting a lot of deer damage of trees, and I wonder how much you hear about that in the general news. Is it something that can we get more ways to control deer in Montgomery County in this area? Do you know anything about that?
I do. I probably can see my deer if I look for a few minutes. They're out there. I live, sort of closer to the river, and the Park Service has recently started culling the deer in the C&O Canal area. And while I love my deer, but they really do a great deal of damage. And as they lower the population along the river, that is helping those of us who are close to it in a way that, like our numbers are definitely down. They can still find the native plants that I have just planted. They know where those are. They're their favorites, but definitely the numbers are down. The county is doing both archery and sharpshooting in Stream Valley parks. But I think the National Park Service involvement is helping. Boy, we have a lot of deer. I mean, apparently they all have COVID besides. Yeah. So I don't know if you've read that, but deer apparently are massively infected with COVID. And you don't kiss any deer that you go out and see. And certainly the deer are interested in being friendly, most of them. But it's an issue. And
Yeah.
there's no question it's an issue.
Hmm.
Then there's a deer report on the county website, both on the county
Okay.
website and Fairfax County website. And the National Park Service has you can read the plans for different areas. They're working on it, and it is making a difference, but boy, maybe the coyotes will make a difference.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well,
And I have a secret I'll share with you, which is, well, two of them. I'm not a morning person.
Thank you.
and today is my birthday.
oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, thank
So
you.
Here I am.
Well,
I very much enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you, Mary. Well, we sure appreciate it. And thank you for the time. This has been wonderful. And we will certainly check out the Potomac Almanac, especially online. I didn't know
Great.
about that. So have a great day, everybody. Thank you. I'm going to
Happy
sign us off
birthday,
now.
Mary.
You
And thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday.
Thank you.